My grandpa loved a good legend. He was nuts for him. Every time he saw us, he would spin a yarn that could enthrall an alley's worth of cats. He read about them in old books and random regional magazines he found from the weirdest of sellers. He always had a friend that was an insider that knew the real truth and was willing to tell my grandpa as long as he kept it to himself. Of course, he never did. He was as much of a gossip as he was a lover of lore. I loved his stories. They were always the highlights of my visits. He used to call me into his office and tell me his latest tale. His office, man, I can still see it in my mind. The walls were built-in bookshelves overflowing with books and magazines and curios that he would collect from secondhand stores. It smelled like the yellowing pages in those old tomes. Sometimes when I'm in a secondhand store, I get nostalgia from that scent. I was 16 when he got sick. It started out with a few trips to the doctors, but it quickly escalated to him being in the hospital full-time. The doctors didn't know exactly what was afflicting him, but whatever it was sure doing a number on him. For about a month, he lapsed into a coma, and we were sure he was just going to fade away. But then he didn't. For a few weeks, he would wake up at random intervals, mumbling something in a hoarse voice and slipping back into sleep. His throat was so dry that the words barely registered. Doctors were confused and still prepared us for the inevitable. They said that frequently people in this condition aren't really aware of what they're saying. Their brain synapses are just firing off at random, in their words. His whole system is starting to shut down. I don't know if you've ever had to watch someone slowly pass away, but it's the worst thing a person can experience. You want to stay hopeful for a miracle, but you know, deep down, you're just running out the clock. In your darker moments, you'll wish they would just die and relieve you of this torture, but then the guilt creeps in that you even had that thought, and you'll feel worse than you did before. It's a no-win situation for everyone. In short, it blows. I had started coming by the hospital just to sit in Grandpa's room after school for a few hours. It was quiet, and I could get some homework done and be close to him in these final moments. When I finished my work, I would tell him about some of the legends that I heard, mostly made up in hopes that he could hear it. It was therapeutic for me, and I look back at those times fondly. The last time I saw him alive is burned into my brain. He was sleeping, which wasn't uncommon, and I was working on poli-sci homework. And suddenly, I heard him call out my name. I snapped my head over and saw his eyes flutter open. Yeah, Grandpa? I said, putting down my pen. That's when I saw the look of fear on his face. Are you okay? No, he said, struggling to find his voice. No, I've been trying to hold out as long as I could, but I have to tell you. Tell me what? I asked, standing now next to his bed. They're coming, he said. They already got me, but they're slowly coming for us all. I assumed this was what his doctors were talking about. Who's coming for us? He stayed quiet for a minute, and then suddenly shut his eyes. And just then, a nurse walked into the room and nodded at me. Was he just talking? No, I lied. I had on the TV. It was loud. But the TV is off. Well, yeah, now it is, I said with a laugh. I just shut it off. I'm sorry. You're fine, they said. You didn't do anything wrong. The nurse eyed my grandpa. You sure he wasn't mumbling or anything? I'm pretty sure. He's been resting most of the time I've been here. Actually, most of the time I visit, all he does is rest. I'm sorry, the nurse said, nodding. I know it's not easy to watch someone go. Thanks, I said, looking at my grandpa's face. He looked peaceful. If he comes to, hit the call button and let us know, okay? Absolutely. The nurse left, and I glanced back at my grandpa. I don't know why, but I said, she's gone, as if he'd respond. My skeleton nearly leapt from my body when he replied, good. I thought he was back asleep, but he had just been pretending to sleep. Grandpa? I said. What's going on? The lost ones. They found a way to come back. And they're coming. The lost ones? We aren't the only beings who use our bodies. I gave him a confused look, and my eyes drifted to the call button. He noticed. Don't do it. Some of the nurses have been turned. I decided to play along. This might be the last whopper my grandpa gets to tell me. How can you tell if they've been turned? He strained to hold up his arm and pointed at his hand. There's a small triangle imprint on their palm. It's how they can tell. And who told you this? He took a deep breath, and you could see how he struggled with it. The end was coming soon, and I knew it. I did my best to keep it together. When I was under, he stated, I met a man who told me the truth. He said his name was Montgomery. He worked for the unit, and he said, my grandpa grabbed his heart, and I went to go push the button, and he yelled out, "No! You need... just listen." Montgomery said, look for the mark on their palms. And with that, his eyes rolled to the back of his head. I smashed down on the call button. A phalanx of nurses and doctors stormed in. They went to work, and I was pushed out into the hallway. Grandpa died a few days later. His funeral wasn't a somber affair. It was more like a party. Grandpa had touched so many people and enthralled them with his stories. He was a loving man that cared deeply about everyone and often went without, so others go with some. Friends from his army days showed up, former co-workers, relatives, even a few hospital staff members. Even though he had been there for a short time, he made strong connections. As the wake was dying down, I had noticed a man I hadn't seen at the funeral in my house. He was tall, but walked stooped over like he's used to being in a space too short for his proper height. He had graying hair and a pencil-thin mustache. His pale eyes lit up when they saw me, but the rest of his face remained motionless. He made his way over to me and asked my name. I told him, and he nodded. "Who are you?" I asked. "Did you work for my grandpa?" "In a sense," he said. "My name is Montgomery. I'm sure he mentioned me." My heart sank. I wanted to vocalize a response, but I couldn't. I just nodded. The mark is near where the wrist connects to the hand. At first blush, it seems like a normal wrinkle to the skin, but look closer. It reveals itself. Those are the lost ones. What? Remember, there are no straight lines in nature. If you see a triangle, get away from that person as soon as you can. Why are you telling me this? Who do you work for? Who I work for isn't important now. I'm telling you this because you need to be aware of what might be coming for us. I don't understand. You won't until you will. When the moment comes, the tumblers click into place. Just be ready. To do what? Save us all. And with that, he turned and left. I never saw Montgomery again. It's been 10 years since my grandpa died, and so far, I haven't been called upon to save us all. I can barely keep a houseplant alive, so if I'm our last hope, we're all screwed. What's weird though, is that whenever I meet someone new and we shake hands, I always try to get a glimpse of their palm. I haven't seen a triangle yet, but I look for them out of habit. I dread the day that I finally see one because I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. And if this story was real, which of his others were too?